The weirdest borders on Earth? Hello everyone, welcome to Space and Place channel. Have you ever looked at a world map and wondered, why is there a country inside another country? Or why do some borders look like they were drawn by a drunk cartographer? Seriously, some of these lines are squiggly, some are straight for hundreds of miles, and some just seem to make absolutely no sense. Well, today we're diving into one of geography's weirdest mysteries. Why do countries have such strange borders? Stay tuned. The answers may surprise you. Alright, let's kick things off with a geography classic, the landlocked kingdom of Lesotho, completely surrounded by South Africa. I mean, picture this, you wake up in Lesotho, have breakfast and decide to go for a walk. But as soon as you step outside your front door, bam, you're in South Africa. No border patrol, no passport control, just a casual stroll from one country to another. So how did this geographical oddity come to be? Well, like many things in life, it's complicated. We're talking centuries of history, shifting alliances, and a whole lot of colonial influence. See, Lesotho, originally known as Basutoland, was a kingdom that managed to resist both Zulu expansion and Boer settlement during the 19th century. But then the British came knocking, eager to add another jewel to their colonial crown. After a series of wars and treaties, Basutoland became a British protectorate in 1868, mainly to keep it out of the hands of the Boers, who were encroaching on their land. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When South Africa gained its independence in 1910, Lesotho wasn't included. It remained a British protectorate until 1966, when it finally gained full independence as the Kingdom of Lesotho. But by then the borders were pretty much set. Lesotho was this little island of independence in a sea of apartheid-era South Africa. And those borders have remained largely unchanged to this day, making Lesotho a fascinating case study in how history shapes geography. But it's not just about the past. Being completely enveloped by another country has real implications for Lesotho. Imagine relying on your neighbor for pretty much everything. Trade, access to the sea, even just getting from one part of your country to another. It's a unique geopolitical situation, and one that continues to shape the lives of the Basotho people. From one geographically isolated nation to another, let's hop over to Europe and talk about Kaliningrad. This little chunk of Russia, sandwiched between Lithuania and Poland on the Baltic Sea, is about as geographically awkward as it gets. I mean, imagine explaining to someone that you live in a part of Russia that's actually further west than Warsaw. It's like a little piece of Russia decided to go on vacation and never came back. So how did this geographical anomaly come about? Well, buckle up, because we're going back in time to World War II. Before the war, Kaliningrad was actually known as Königsberg, a German city with a rich history dating back to the Teutonic Knights. But after the war, with the redrawing of borders and the displacement of millions, Königsberg found itself on the wrong side of history. The Potsdam Agreement of 1945, which decided the fate of post-war Europe, awarded this northern part of East Prussia to the Soviet Union. The German population was expelled, and the city was renamed Kaliningrad after Mikhail Kalinin, a prominent Soviet leader. And just like that, a little piece of Russia was born in the heart of Europe. Now, you might think being separated from the motherland by hundreds of miles would be a drag, but Kaliningrad has its perks. It's a major port city, strategically important for Russia's Baltic fleet. Plus, being surrounded by EU countries means Kaliningrad has become a hub for trade, with goods flowing in and out like nobody's business. But it also makes for some interesting geopolitical dynamics. Imagine being a Kaliningrad resident and needing a visa just to visit Moscow. It's a unique situation, to say the least, and one that highlights the enduring legacy of World War II on the map of Europe. Chapter 3, Bala Hertog and Baal Nassau, a town divided. Okay, get ready to have your minds blown, because things are about to get seriously weird. We're talking about Baal Hertog and Baal Nassau, a town that's not one, not two, but technically two different countries. I mean, forget drawing lines on a map. These borders are like a child scribbled all over the place. We're talking enclaves within enclaves, with little bits of Belgium tucked inside the Netherlands and vice versa. You could be walking down the street, cross an invisible line, and bam, you're in a different country. It's enough to make your head spin. So how on earth did this happen? Well, like most things in Europe, it all goes back to medieval times. We're talking feudal lords, land swaps, and a whole lot of historical baggage. You see, Baarle-Hertog, the Belgian part, was originally a bunch of tiny parcels of land owned by the Duke of Brabant. And Baal-Nassau, the Dutch part, belonged to the House of Nassau. Over centuries, these two powers squabbled over the land, leading to a patchwork of territories so complex that it makes a jigsaw puzzle look like child's play. But here's the kicker. They never actually decided who owned what. So in 1843, they finally decided to draw a border. But instead of making it simple, they basically drew lines around the existing properties, creating this crazy quilt of Belgian and Dutch enclaves. And it gets even weirder. Some houses are literally split down the middle, with the living room in one country and the kitchen in another. Imagine the dinner parties. But hey, at least the residents get dual citizenship and can choose which country's laws they want to follow, right? It's a bizarre situation, but it just goes to show that sometimes history creates the most fascinating geographical quirks. Chapter 4, Alaska, the US state that's not so united. All right, let's hop across the pond to North America and talk about Alaska, the last frontier, the land of stunning glaciers, majestic mountains, and a rather awkward border situation. You see, Alaska is part of the United States, but it's separated from the contiguous US by a rather large chunk of Canada. I mean, imagine having to drive through another country just to get to your own state. It's like geography decided to play a little prank on the US. So how did this geographical quirk come to be? Well, it all started with a purchase. Not just any purchase, mind you, but the biggest land deal in history, the Alaska Purchase of 1867. Back then, the US bought Alaska from Russia for a cool $7.2 million, about 2 cents an acre. It seemed like a steal, even if most people thought it was a frozen wasteland. But there was just one little problem: Canada. You see, at the time, Canada was still a British colony, and they weren't too thrilled about the US suddenly becoming their next-door neighbor. They wanted a piece of the action, or at least a say in how the border was drawn. But the US, being the US, basically said thanks but no thanks and drew the border themselves. And let's just say they weren't exactly known for their subtlety. The border, as it stands today, was largely drawn along mountain ranges and waterways, which, on paper, sounds pretty straightforward. But in reality, it created a rather convoluted line that cuts through mountains, glaciers, and even a few islands. And for the people living in these remote border regions, life can get pretty interesting. Chapter 5. The Diomede Islands, a date across the international dateline. Alright folks, get ready for the grand finale of geographical weirdness, because we're about to enter the twilight zone of time zones. I'm talking about the Diomede Islands, 2 tiny islands in the Bering Strait that are only 2.4 miles apart, but a whole 21 hours apart in time. Imagine looking across the water at your neighbor and waving hello, knowing they're living in tomorrow. It's like something out of a science fiction movie, but this is no movie set, this is real life on the international dateline. You see, the Diomede Islands, Big Diomede owned by Russia and Little Diomede part of the US, sit smack dab in the middle of the Bering Strait, which also happens to be the international dateline. This imaginary line, zigging and zagging its way across the Pacific Ocean, marks the transition from one calendar day to the next. Cross it heading west and you gain a day. Cross it heading east and you lose a day. And since the Diomedes are right on the line, they're literally islands divided by time. Big Diomede is 21 hours ahead of Little Diomede, which is why they're often called Tomorrow Island and Yesterday Island, respectively. But it's not just about the time difference. These islands also represent a physical border between the US and Russia, 2 countries that haven't always seen eye to eye, especially during the Cold War. In fact, the waters between the Diomedes were nicknamed the Ice Curtain because they were one of the most heavily guarded borders in the world. Today, the relationship between the 2 countries might be thawing, but the Diomedes remain a stark reminder of the divisions, both physical and temporal, that exist in our world. Outro. So what did we learn? From countries within countries to towns split down the middle, borders may just be lines on a map, but the stories behind them reveal just how complex and fascinating our world really is. They're a testament to the enduring power of history, culture, and the often messy business of human geography. Which strange border surprised you the most? Leave a comment below And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys through space and place.